Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenberg Report, with Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg Town Supervisor.
And I'm David Bach.
And we have a very interesting program. Today we're going to be discussing the real estate market in Greenberg. Our homes selling, our homes not selling, the impact of the Trump tax policies, possibly the impact of the town reassessment, just property taxes, and much more. My guests are Michael Bryant, who is a associate real estate broker with Compass.com, Marilyn Krizansky, associate real estate broker with Houlihan Lawrence, and Natalie Werner, and she's with Berkshire Hathaway. So thanks a lot. So maybe we could just start. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you went into the real estate practice.
Boy, that's a good question, Paul. And sometimes I wonder, why did I get into this business? I've always just loved homes, buying them, selling them, fixing them, landlord, tenant, all of that. So to me, it was not a big deal to just I fall in love a lot with houses. So it was really kind of a good way to do it. That's how I got in the business.
And what about you?
So I'm a tax accountant by college standards. I worked in public accounting for 10 years, and then I had a baby. And it wasn't really conducive to being a mother of an infant. So I always had interest in real estate, and I had bought an apartment in Westchester a couple of years earlier, and I enjoyed the process, and I was interested in what the real estate agents did, and so I went and I got my license, and it's a great way to raise a family, be home as much as you can, make your own hours, and be able to work with interesting people. And
Great. Marilyn?
Yes, my background is in engineering, and I spent the first decade of my life in in construction in New York City, working for a large general contractor. And then subsequent to that, I started a second career in real estate. I had always been interested in real estate even when I was in engineering, and it just sort of dovetailed into a new career.
The question a lot of people have, if they live in Greenberg or anywhere in the county, is where are we with the market? Is this a good time? Are homes still appreciating? Is it easy to sell a home, and are you going to get the same prices that you got a year or two ago?
I'm going to say that there are mixed factors, and it depends on what you're looking for and where you live, and of course your pocketbook. There's always that, no matter what the market is, and there's always a buyer for something that somebody's selling, as long as the price matches what it is that the market will bear. And whether the market is very up or very down, it's all going to be contingent on who is looking and who is selling and finding the right fit for people.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think if a house is priced correctly, it does have buyers that are interested in it, and it will in fact move. All right, it's just a matter of understanding in the locale that you may live in what would be the appropriate pricing for the house at the time that you're coming on the market.
Are the homes generally priced higher or lower than they were a year ago?
I would say that it depends, once again, on the specific locale. I mean, I live in Hartsdale, and I know Hartsdale is approximately the same as a year ago. All right, so it's been a pretty good market there. Edgemont, where I have some listings, generally speaking, the market is down in that school district.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially in Edgemont. Things are sitting on the market much longer. Prices are coming down. Things are sitting, and I'm getting that vibe from the actual buyers and sellers in Edgemont about that themselves. They seem pretty savvy to it also.
Is this just high end, or is it everyone?
Not necessarily. It's sort of across the board.
What about you're from Irvington.
Yeah, I'm in Irvington. I mean, the river towns were hit big by the revaluation, and I do a lot of that work as an attorney. But I think to echo my colleagues' comments here, yes, it's always about perceived value. Does the buyer think that what they're getting is the proper value for what's in the market? But if you just look at the raw numbers, if you compare the first 6 months of this year with the first 6 months of last year, and at Compass we've crunched all these numbers, it's pretty dramatic on two fronts. How many homes are now actively on the market compared to a year ago, and how much inventory is now on the market. And I'll just use Irvington as an example. It is extreme, luckily, but the inventory has increased there from 5.4 months on the market to more than 11. It will take 11 months to absorb the homes that are on the market currently in Irvington. That's an unbelievable increase in a pretty short period of time. The other issue is the mean price. I mean, has it gone up? Has it gone down? Is it about the same? In most areas, what we're seeing, what I feel, and echo or disagree with me if you'd like, we were so used to this rabid buying market, sellers market, people buying just like crazy. You have an open house on Sunday and then, hey, I have 4 offers, and you wrap it up and you move on to the next. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you're getting, if you're lucky, 1 offer, and you better ride that to the closing table or you're going to be sitting with this property for a while. So I'm not ready to say that it's a buyer's market, but it's a cooler seller's market.
What would you say caused that? Because you said in Irvington it almost doubled the amount of time that it would take to sell the inventory. That's a pretty drastic change. What caused that?
Well, part of it, I think, is if you look at the mean value of the homes in Irvington, they're right around $1.2 million. That's a higher end of the market, and that, I think, has been more seriously impacted than the lower end. We haven't started talking about taxes yet, but certainly that's going to factor into that conversation. If you look at the surrounding river towns, Ardsley, Dobbs, Hastings, the mean is below $1 million there, and the inventory is not as drastically affected as it was a year ago.
So basically, we have to take a break now, and then we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll talk more about the housing market in Greenburgh and Westchester. And if you're looking to buy a house, this may be a good time because people want to sell. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Supervisor.
And I'm David Bach.
And we have an interesting program. My guests are Marilyn, Krizansky of Houlihan Lawrence, Natalie, Werner of Berkshire Hathaway, and Michael Bryant, who's with Compass.com. And during the break, we were talking about the fact that some of the higher end, some of the homes in Edgemont are not selling, but homes in Ardsley are selling. Why would homes in one neighborhood, in 2 affluent areas, have different experiences, and say the Scarsdale have the same problem, say, as Edgemont?
Scarsdale is experiencing somewhat similar things to Edgemont. When we're talking about Ardsley, and I would say Dobbs Ferry, I would put this in too. There's a lot more for sale in Ardsley, but there are things that are moving, and in terms of the timing of everything, and why it would be in one and not the other. Ardsley is a little different from Edgemont, and Edgemont's a very small school district, a small enclave if you want to call it. Ardsley spreads out over a really large area. If you took a radius and took, the schools and then branched out, there are a number of different P.O. boxes that fall into Ardsley, both in the village of Ardsley and in unincorporated Greenburgh, where I live, near Ardsley High School. There's a lot that happens in the town of Greenburgh. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to live in the unincorporated portion, because we get the town pool, we have a lot of facilities and we have a lot of activity that we have as part of the unincorporated Greenberg, where Ardsley Village residents unfortunately don't have that option. People that live in an unincorporated Greenberg and go to Ardsley schools also can get a parking permit to park at the Hartsdale train station. And in Ardsley, it could be a little more dicey in terms of the availability of parking spaces at train stations for them, because as much as Ardsley likes to call itself a river town, it's not on any river, unless you want to talk about the Sawmill River, kind of, if you can find the water there a little bit. But in a true form of a river town, we like to be in that blanket of calling itself a river town, but we're really not on a river, and we don't have a train station. So that's something that some people find Ardsley to not be the best for, but most people who want to live there, they seek it out. And there's a lot of activity going on in construction, in particular within the Ardsley School District. Just in my neighborhood, there are new construction houses. Houses have been torn down in established neighborhoods of 1950s splits and ranches, and they're building these larger homes and making these investments in these neighborhoods. And I'm seeing a fair amount of it. So things seem to be moving more. The price point is lower in Ardsley than it is in Edgemont or Scarsdale or Irvington. And that seems to be on a more affordable level for your average homeowner who's making their first home purchase. And a lot of them come more to a place like Ardsley than Edgemont and Scarsdale and Irvington, because the price point is a little more palatable for them and what they can actually get a mortgage for.
And Marilyn, do you find that, say, homes, say, in Hartsdale and, say, the starting homes, are, say, Poets Corner, are doing better than, say, a wealthier area?
Yes, absolutely. Just like Natalie was saying, in Ardsley, your median value of what's selling is much less than, say, Scarsdale and Edgemont. Same thing with Hartsdale, and just about any part of Hartsdale. Okay, the median value is less. And between that translates also into taxes, all right? And when people are looking at homes, it's not just the price of the home, it's the tax now on the home, okay, given the federal guidelines that were passed in December. And it all comes in one package. Okay, this is what people look for.
Michael, you're one of the more popular people at Town Hall because
I don't know about that.
You have a website called mypropertytaxistoohigh.com. If the homes in, say, the more affordable areas are going, are selling, and the homes in the more affluent areas are not selling, then the values of the homes, say, in Edgemont are going to probably go down, and the values of the homes in the more moderate areas are going to go up. Mm-hmm. So next year, could we sort of see something totally different?
We could, and you're right in that people are now much more aware of how the value affects taxes, and that's part of the revaluation process. One of the things I think was the best part of the revaluation process, when you get your bill now, it says X number of dollars for your assessment. Oh, by the way, that's also the market value. So there's no weird calculation that has to take place. Homeowners before had no clue what was going on because their assessment always looked the same every year.
Right. So do you feel that there's going to be constant changes now? It's like 1 year Edgemont could be doing great, another year it could be doing horrible.
I think it's too soon to tell, to be honest with you. I think right now there's a lot of buying from the sidelines. People are sitting back saying, what does this really mean? What does SALT mean? That's the limitation on what you can deduct in property taxes. How does that all work out with some of the other tax changes? The standard deductions have changed. The alternative minimum tax, the AMT, has changed. A lot of people in our area are subject to that because they make a lot of money. I think they're waiting to see, because we don't know till next year. We won't know exactly what the shakeout is. We haven't had to do the accounting because all of the new laws that were enacted really kick in for next year, meaning this year's income. So I think they're waiting to see exactly what it means. Maybe it's not as bad as we think. Maybe it's worse. Nobody knows, and I think that's keeping a lot of people on the sidelines.
I think that you're very right about that. And as I said, in my first career was in public accounting, and I also still do part-time income tax returns for individuals and excuse me, in some simple trusts. And as far as deductions go on income tax returns for people in Lower Westchester, you know, the average income of a person who owns a home in Westchester County, let's say the average home price is $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in whatever part of Westchester you live. In Lower Westchester, that might even be a little conservative. But in terms of that, your average person, as you said about alternative minimum tax, I don't know how many people, they've become much more savvy about what their real estate taxes are, certainly with the reassessment, because now it's not clouded in that formula that nobody understood what it was, how it came to be, and why it is. And people kind of, for a long time, they blindly just paid their real estate taxes because they didn't know.
Yeah, we have to take another break, and after the break, I want to ask all of you what government should be doing. Are taxes too high? Is that impacting the value of homes? And the other question is, if they are too high, what should we cut? And if we cut basic services, will that have a negative impact on our ability of attracting people to the town? So you can think about that in the next few minutes, and then we'll hear your thoughts. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, my name's Paul Feiner. I'm Greenberg Supervisor.
Well, I'm David Bach.
And you know, most people don't think their taxes are too low. And Michael, Bryant has a website, My Taxes is Too High.
My property tax is too high.com. Thanks, Paul.
And the question that I have of all of you is, do you think that it would, we all know we want to lower taxes and make Greenberg more affordable, but would you like to see the town, make massive cuts in services to keep the taxes down? And that would be town, school, and fire districts, and also the county. And what type of cuts would you? Because I'm sort of.
You're deep in it there, Paul. You're deep in there.
Yeah, and I don't know what people really want.
Well, from my perspective, it's a very difficult decision, because I'm finding, and my colleagues I'm sure will agree, that people are coming here for the services that we have, the schools primarily, and then everything else kind of trickles out of that. So if you start talking about the C word, consolidation, which I think is the only way to really save money,
right,
which will ultimately reduce taxes, then the people who are coming here are thinking, well, maybe it's not so special. Maybe, if we're just part of this amalgam of all these school districts or police departments, then maybe it's not as special, maybe we're not as willing to go there, and maybe we'll go somewhere else. So I think it's difficult to just say, let's consolidate, let's cut all those costs, reduce the taxes, and see what happens, because I think some folks who come here are willing to pay to get the special, unique things that are offered by each of these insular municipalities.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And in particular, I talk about Ardsley a lot because I live there, but I'm a real estate agent, and I have certain duties legally, but as a mother, I have a child with special needs. The Ardsley School District has served my son very well. I was the co-chair of the Special Needs Committee for the Ardsley School District for 8 years, and I was also I was a Girl Scout troop leader. I was also on the Ardsley Education Foundation Committee. I also am the surrogate parent for the Ardsley School District, should that need ever arise. It never has, but I do it. I say I'll do it if it needed to be. I've gotten calls for so many years having nothing to do with me being a real estate agent, just people who have children with special needs because they hear about Ardsley. And there are certain school districts in Westchester County that attorney advocates for people that have children with special needs, they recommend the places, they analyze them for people, and I'm not trying to sell Ardsley to anybody specifically, but as a general thing, it's a true statement that Ardsley has a very well-known and very highly respected special needs program for children, and it has served me well living there. That's not why I moved there, but it is something that has served us very well, and these kinds of things bring people to Ardsley School District specifically, and they're ready to do what they need to do in order to get the education for their children. Westchester County in general is known for having exemplary school districts.
So let me ask a question, Marilyn. Would you live in Hartsdale, and you've sometimes spoken at town board meetings and expressed your views. Would you like to see me, as a town supervisor, say, okay, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that, and what type of, as it pertains to helping with the market, would what do you want us to just go like drastic cuts or gradual cuts or no cuts?
Well, I think that if you speak to the people who are already living in Greenburgh, okay, we talked off air about you perhaps putting together a list of all the services that people in fact get through their taxes. All right, if people review that, there may be things that they would look at that they feel could fall by the wayside. All right, I think people that are coming in from outside that don't already live here in Greenburgh, I really don't have a lot of people that are saying to me, okay, what about the senior programs? What about this? What about that? And go into a lot of detail. I think that you'll get pushback from people who are already living here, who are used to those services. But if, in fact, the services are eliminated, consolidated, reduced, and it translates directly into, okay, this is how much it would mean in your tax dollars, with your tax dollars perhaps going down, I think that would be a benefit for most people, to be able to see that directly. One of the things we have spoken about in the past is the fire department. Okay, I know when I get the breakdown of my taxes, the fire department in, again, Hartsdale where I live, is a big chunk. Okay, the money that goes towards that is a big chunk of money. All right, and I know that there was an effort several years ago to try and do something there to consolidate. It never materialized, and I think that that should be something perhaps that can be looked at again.
And has that impacted the sale of homes, Hartsdale versus Ardsley, because Ardsley is a all volunteer department?
Oh, I don't think the fire department makes a difference to people coming in one way or the other. I think most people who move into the area are checking out the school district first. That's just been my, what I notice. All right, and then after the school district, it's, the neighborhood, the safety, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, because real estate agents here in Westchester County, our minds work in school districts. People ask us all the time for things that they see on different real estate websites for addresses that we've been working with them, and they see something with a P.O. box that's some address with a zip code, and they say, I want to see this house. Why didn't you tell me about this house? That's because mailing addresses do not denote where people physically live in terms of a school district in Westchester County, and it's one of the greatest reasons why people really need a real estate agent here in this county, because of the way the post offices work. If that's the first thing that happens, and that can be with people that you don't know who are first asking you about something randomly for the first time, or people you've been working with for a very long time.
Yeah, Michael, we did a reassessment of the town. And I know you've challenged some of the reassessments. Do you feel that by and large it was, the town did a good, average, or poor job? And looking back in hindsight, do you think we made a mistake by reassessing?
Boy, how much time do we have? I think average would be the best I could go, and here's why. First of all, the process itself, a mass appraisal, is never going to be perfect. All they're doing at Tyler, and the company that did the revaluation, they're creating a computer model, they're throwing raw data into it, and it spits out what they think are the appropriate values based on location. Where is it near the train? Is it near the river? Is it near a freeway? All of those variables. But it's such a subjective product we're talking about here. There are no two houses that are the same, ever, especially in our part of the world. You could have a Tudor next to a Colonial, next to a Split. I mean, you have to look at them truly as an item, one at a time. Can't do that with mass appraisal. So you're going in, with a heavy load. Having said that, I think it was very important and valuable to turn the assessments into numbers people could understand, as I mentioned before. If I get my bill that says my house is worth $800,000, I can tell, hey, they're right, they're wrong. You know, what I hear all the time is, if the town thinks my house is worth $800,000, they can buy it right now. You know, that tells me that at least at a gut level they think it's off. But now they know, they have that information. So on that level, it's good.
Yeah, why don't we continue right after this break talking about the reassessment and the impact it's had on the housing market. And if you say the wrong thing, we'll take another break quicker. No, that's a joke. But I really want to hear your thoughts. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor. No, it's not.
1460 WVOX.
1460 WVOX.
Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor, and my guest today are Michael Bryant, a real estate broker with Compass.com, Marilyn Krizansky, a broker with Houlihan Lawrence, and Natalie Werner with Berkshire Hathaway. We were talking about reassessment and the impact it's had on the town, and you mentioned that you thought that it was an hour, it wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't it's not horrible. Do you basically feel that most of the values are pretty accurate?
I think that I agree with Michael in terms of the quality of what was done. I think it was gravely needed because it now, it's now pretty transparent. 2 years ago when we first got all our reassessed values, there were people who had previously been underassessed who you never heard them say a word about real estate taxes in their lives, and suddenly they were all knocking on my door at home, calling me, emailing me. They were all very, very worried because they say my house is this and the one next door has much lower taxes. And I said, your house is worth that much.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel that a lot of people are trying to sell their homes now because they just can't afford the taxes if they were underpaying for all these years? Is there like a mass exodus from some people?
I do think that there are definitely a large segment of downsizers. Okay, they no longer have to be in the home because the children aren't in the school system any longer. I mean, that's what creates the downsizing. And they don't need to pay the taxes. This is the way they look at it. They don't need to pay the taxes for the school system and everything else. And they'll look to downsize and go elsewhere. And sometimes it's out of state. Sometimes it's just downsizing to perhaps a condominium in the area. They don't need all the space that was in the house.
So it's really, as a result of this, it might have encouraged people to say, you know what, I don't really need to stay here anymore.
Right.
We have a phone call. Good morning.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I don't live in Greenberg, but some of my friends who are older like me who went through this reassessment, I could just give you a perspective that you may or may not agree with. Generally speaking, the folks who are richer that live in the higher assessed homes will get a break. Their homes will be lowered in assessment. The poor folks, people on fixed incomes, the elderly, maybe even more of the minority folks in your community who live in smaller homes, will get an increase, will be assessed at a higher value. I'm just going to make a suggestion. Why don't you just lower the tax rates for the people in the higher homes and leave the other folks alone? Because all you're doing is forcing your lower income, mostly minority people in Greenberg to get out of town.
But weren't the lower priced homes, many of those were actually overpaying over the years, and then after the reassessment, then their taxes generally go down in many neighborhoods.
I don't know. I can't make a blanket statement like the caller suggests. In fact, the tax is an ad valorem tax. That's the fancy Latin way of saying it's based on the value of the home. I do cases for homes in Mount Vernon, New Rochelle. I mean, every municipality, and not just Westchester, but surrounding counties, and there's no difference in my experience between a higher end home getting a reduction and a lower end home getting a reduction. The value is the value is the value. If the evidence is there to support a reduction, you're going to get one. And it's not economic specific, it's not gender specific, it's not racially specific, it's all about the value.
Do you all agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's exactly what the function of the reassessment was, from my viewpoint, was to give people that very, very transparent ability to see what the town sees the value of your home as, and whatever that happens to be, that's what your taxes should be commensurate with it, and they are literally to the penny. That if you feel that your home is not worth as much as what the town thinks that it is, then you either go there and show them proof yourself, or you hire somebody like Michael or myself or Marilyn, whoever, has expertise in this area and can prove to the town that would be true. And that's in June, the first 3 weeks of June every year. You go into the town with all of your documentation, and then the assessment board, I sat on the Town of Greenburgh Assessment Board for 3 years, just prior to the reassessment taking place, the process starting. And I learned a lot about how all this works, and that was before you could see the actual numbers, and a lot of people had no idea what it meant. And now you do, and you have a lot more to go in with, because anybody can look at anything about their home having to do with the real estate taxes, and they can see the value to the dollar that the town says that it's worth. And if you think it's wrong, you can fight to change it.
And the other thing is the citizen board, the Board of Grievance, they're all independent people.
Absolutely.
Nobody, I've never tried influencing anyone, and I don't think anybody has. So, and they're not rubber
I have.
stamps.
I've tried.
You've tried, but the thing
Very
is,
funny.
but basically, people that board sometimes overrules the assessor. Have you found that?
Oh yeah, occasionally it does happen. But first of all, those folks are unbelievable. And volunteering the time that they do, it is a thankless job. It is labor intensive, and it's nice that we have people willing to volunteer to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I did it for 3 years, and I worked with some really lovely people who really, we all take time out of our days. Not everybody, there are a couple of people here and there that are retired, and they have more time, and they want to give to the community, and it's a wonderful thing. But there are people like me who have a full-time real estate job, a part-time tax return at times of year job, and 2 kids and all that kind of stuff. But I did it because I found it really interesting and fascinating, and I love my town, and we take advantage of what's there. And there are, just so people know, there are 5 people. That's the law. There can be only 5 people, and we sit in a room by ourselves with a locked door. Nobody else influences anything. We're given boxes of files. We had a very short amount of time to make decisions because there were so many grievances. There were 2,500 grievances one year, 1,750 another year, and we have a very finite period of time. It's like a 5-6 week window that you must do everything.
I just had one other question, Marilyn. If people are trying to sell their home,
Yes.
And it's not selling, if they just lower their price, they'll eventually get somebody to buy.
Generally speaking, yes. If the market's not responding to the price that you initially put on the home, then the next step is to adjust the price, and that's, of course, in a downward direction.
And if it's adjusted, then the value of that neighborhood, if a lot of people are lowering it, will go down the following.
And you have to be proactive. You have to make sure you know what those numbers are, because you could be perfect now, but when you sell the home at a reduced price, you're not so perfect. The buyer needs to know that, and they need to be proactive about it.
Absolutely. And people also should make sure that they have the STAR exemption on their home if they qualify for it. There are so many people that assume that they have it and they don't, and I see sometimes when I go to do listing presentations that I bring them all the documents and I say, I looked up your taxes and I saw that you don't have the STAR exemption, perhaps you don't qualify for it. And then they tell me a short thing and I say, oh, I'm sorry, it's not retroactive, and now you're selling your home. But it's certainly wherever you go from here, or just to advise others for the future, it really is a tax savings, and you should talk to the town about how to do that. It's very simple. It's online now. It's a very, very easy thing to do. The reassessment in general has brought so much out to so many people because we have these online property cards now that everybody can see all of their taxes very succinctly, and it's helpful.
Great. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I want to thank you, Natalie, Werner with Berkshire Hathaway, Marilyn, Krizansky with Houlihan, Lawrence, and both of you, your firms are in Scarsdale, and Michael Bryant and Duxbury, Mike of Compass, and also the website mypropertytaxes2high.com.
Thank you,
Thank
Paul.
you very much.
Thank you so much.